In the far reaches of the galaxy, where star systems burned like tiny lanterns in a sea of endless black, there lived a conqueror feared by all who had heard his name, General Derek of the Carathian Dominion, a giant of a being, armored in deep obsidian plating and known for never losing a single battle. He had crushed civilizations that resisted him and enslaved those who bowed too late. His warships blotted out suns, and his soldiers marched across planets like shadows swallowing light. Derek was not a leader who gave second chances. When he demanded, the galaxy listened. And now, his sights had turned toward a small blue planet known to many only as a whisper among traitors and warlords. Earth. It was a planet that had, until recently, gone unnoticed by the greater galactic powers. But whispers of the humans, resilience, their unpredictable nature, and the strange beauty of their world had reached the ears of the general. He had no interest in their culture, nor their history. What intrigued him was something more primal, more thrilling. It was said that Earth held creatures unlike any found elsewhere, wild, raw, and powerful. The stories spoke of beasts that could survive in fire, swim beneath crushing seas, even live among humans as silent hunters. Derek, who had seen everything from plasma-breathing sand serpents to venom-spitting sky drakes, found himself oddly curious. And when a being as powerful as he grew curious, it often ended in disaster for someone else. So the command was sent, not as a request, but a demand broadcast on every human frequency across the solar system. The message, spoken in a guttural, alien dialect and translated instantly by Earth's terrified systems, was simple. Send me your fiercest beast, or your world will fall. The message wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. The silence that followed it was heavier than any weapon the humans had ever known. The governments of Earth, once divided by borders and beliefs, suddenly found unity in fear. Scientists, military generals, zoologists, and even wildlife experts were summoned into emergency meetings held in deep underground bunkers. Faces once known only to the academic world were now speaking on global broadcasts, trying to answer the impossible question: what beast could satisfy an alien general who had seen and slain the worst monsters the galaxy had to offer? Some suggested tigers, lions, or bears, but satellites had captured glimpses of creatures on Carathian planets that dwarfed those by 100 times. Others proposed whales, elephants, even genetically modified creatures designed in secret labs. But, again, none of them felt like enough. Panic spread like wildfire. In laboratories across the globe, teams began experimenting, trying to breed or awaken something worthy of being called a beast. Time was short. The Carathian fleet was already on the edge of the solar system, its shimmering black ships darkening the space around them like a storm on the edge of dawn. Every moment brought them closer. On the streets, humans watched the skies with growing dread. The stars were no longer peaceful. They held the promise of doom. And all the while, in a high orbit above Neptune, Derek sat on his throne of steel, and bone, watching Earth through a holographic lens. He waited not with impatience but with amused expectation. In his mind, the humans were already conquered. He simply wanted a trophy before claiming their planet, a pet beast to parade before the Carathian Council as a symbol of yet another world bent to his will. But Earth was proving slower than expected. No ship had yet approached, no beast had been delivered. Derek's claws tapped rhythmically against his armrest, each sound like thunder inside the command deck of his flagship. His officers watched him with nervous eyes, knowing well the price of making their general wait. As the days passed, a single question burned across every human nation, whispered in fear behind closed doors. What happens if Earth fails? Would Derek unleash weapons never seen before, flatten cities with a wave of his hand? Or would he come down himself, tearing through defenses like they were made of glass? No one wanted to find out, but no matter how hard the humans tried, nothing they found seemed enough. It was during one of these frantic discussions, late into a sleepless night, that a woman named Dr. Alicia Marks, a biologist who specialized in animal behavior, spoke softly into a room full of shouting voices. She didn't shout. She didn't beg for attention. She simply said, "What if we've been looking in the wrong place?" The room went silent. Dr. Marks continued, her voice calm but firm. "We're trying to scare him, to impress him with power, but maybe what we need isn't power at all." Her words were confusing to many, even frustrating, but something about the way she spoke made people listen. And in the hours that followed, as the final hours ticked away and Earth's leaders prepared for the worst, a new plan began to form. It was not a plan of strength or fear, but one of hope. And something else, something strange and completely human. With no other option and no time left, Earth made its choice. And as the Carathian transport ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, its massive engines leaving trails of fire across the sky, a small crate was loaded aboard. No one knew exactly what would happen next. Some thought Earth had gone mad. Others thought maybe, just maybe, this plan was the only one clever enough to work. As the crate rose into the stars, carrying Earth's last desperate offering, the idea world held its breath, waiting to see if a puppy could change the course of history. High above the blue curve of Earth, aboard the colossal Carathian dreadnought Vorex's Claw, a moment of quiet anticipation settled over the command chamber like a thick fog. Shadows clung to every metallic corner, and the ever-present hum of alien machinery was drowned out by something even more intense: silence. In the center of the room, seated on a throne constructed from the spines of extinct predators, General Derek stared forward with eyes that glowed like molten copper. He was not a creature built for patience, yet something in the mystery of Earth's final decision had captivated him. The humans had taken too long to respond. Any other world would have already been vaporized. But this planet, fragile and foolish, as it seemed, had chosen defiance in the form of mystery. Now, at last, their answer approached. From the viewing window that stretched like a black ocean across the chamber wall, a single vessel appeared, tiny, almost comical beside the vastness of the Carathian fleet. No weapons, no escort, just one small shuttle, drifting closer under strict tractor beam control. Derek narrowed his eyes. No trembling voice had accompanied its arrival. No hologram of apology. No plea for mercy. Just silence and the slow approach of a craft barely the size of one of his claws. He gestured without speaking. His officers responded instantly, activating the docking sequence. With a hiss of pressure and steam, the shuttle clamped against the receiving bay of Vorex's Claw. Guards in gleaming battle armor lined the corridor, each one towering, silent, and ready to strike at the first sign of trickery. The hatch opened. A single cargo platform hovered out, carrying a sealed crate no larger than a standard containment pod. The crate was simple, Earth-made, marked only with a symbol none of the aliens recognized, a cartoonish paw print. No alarms, no radiation, no movement. General Derek rose from his throne, the floor trembling under his massive weight. His presence alone bent light and fear alike. He stepped forward slowly, ignoring the salute of his soldiers, until he stood before the crate. He could smell it now, organic, alive, but small. Far too small. A flick of his wrist dismissed the guards. This moment, whatever it held, belonged only to him. The crate seal disengaged with a soft hiss. Light spilled from the edges. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a sound, absurd and unexpected, echoed through the chamber. A soft whine, followed by the gentle scrabble of tiny claws against metal. The lid lifted, and a furry head popped out. Floppy ears, wide dark eyes, a damp little nose twitching. In curiosity. The creature blinked once, twice, then gave a joyful bark and tried to leap from the crate, only to tumble awkwardly onto the floor with a squeaky yelp. Derek stared. His great hand, twice the size of the small animal now wriggling at his feet, flexed slowly as if unsure whether to crush or cradle. The beast looked up at him, tongue hanging out, tail wagging so hard its back half wriggled like jelly, and barked again, excited and fearless. It didn't run. It didn't snarl. It didn't even seem to notice the weapons aimed at it from the shadows. Instead, it padded forward and began licking the metal toe of Derek's armored boot. For a long, strange moment, the entire command deck stood frozen. Officers exchanged glances. Some tilted their heads, trying to understand. A few stepped back, expecting their leader's rage to explode in violence. But Derek didn't move. Not yet. His mind, a fortress of battle plans and conquests, had been caught off guard. The creature, if it could even be called that, possessed no claws worth noting, no venom, no armor, no sharp teeth. It was soft, harmless, ridiculous, and yet there it was, showing no fear, no submission, just joy. Derek bent down slowly, claws clicking against the floor as he crouched. His massive face lowered to the creature's level. The puppy tilted its head and let out a high-pitched bark, then promptly rolled onto its back, paws flailing, tongue flopping to one side. Something, ancient and unfamiliar, stirred in Derek's chest. Confusion, yes, but beneath that, a flicker of amusement? Perhaps even wonder. He reached out one armored finger. The puppy latched onto it with a playful growl, teeth barely pressing into the metal. Then it let go and wagged its tail again, panting with pride. Derek chuckled. The sound, foreign and unsettling, rippled through the room like a quake. His soldiers flinched. Laughter had no place in the halls of Carathian command. Not from him, not ever. But it came again, deeper this time, richer, a sound that hadn't echoed from his chest in over 100 years. He scooped up the puppy in one hand and lifted it gently. The tiny creature squirmed happily, licking the side of his gauntlet. It wasn't a beast, not in the way he had demanded. It was something else, something maddeningly innocent, a gift, not of war but of peace, a joke perhaps, or a challenge of another kind. General Dirac turned to his officers. "They sent this," he said, voice rumbling like distant thunder. No one dared speak. Not out of fear, he added, but out of cleverness. He looked at the puppy again, who yawned and snuggled into his palm. "They knew I would not be impressed by power, so they sent me a creature that feared nothing, not even me." A long silence followed. Then he turned toward his throne, puppy still in hand, and sat once more. "Inform the humans," he said at last. "Their offering is accepted." Gasps rippled through the officers. Relief, confusion, and disbelief washed over them. "But, General?" one brave soldier asked. "Is that truly what you wanted?" Derek looked down at the tiny creature now dozing in his hand, a soft snore rising from its nose. He smiled, an expression so rare it felt like the turning of seasons. "No," he said, "it's what I never expected. And sometimes that is worth far more." Across the stars, Earth watched the Carathian fleet hold its position. No invasion followed, no bombardment began. Instead, a single transmission came through, a simple message of acknowledgement, with an image attached. The most feared general in the galaxy, holding a sleeping puppy like it was the universe's greatest treasure. Weeks passed aboard Vorak's Claw, and what began as a galactic curiosity quickly became the center of a slow but undeniable transformation. The puppy, eventually named Zik, after an old Carathian word meaning little flame, had taken root in the heart of a warship designed for fear, destruction, and conquest. Every day began the same now, not with the roaring of engines or the screams of terrified enemies, but with the sound of tiny paws skittering across cold metal, floors, and the cheerful bark that echoed through the ship like a new kind of anthem. Zeke was everywhere. Under tables, in strategy rooms, sneaking into the mess hall, napping on plasma cannons, and once even found curled up on a pile of grenade belts, softly snoring. The hardened warriors of the Carathian fleet, creatures bred for war and molded by pain, found themselves unprepared for the sheer force of this tiny presence. General Derek, once feared for turning entire planets into ash for a single insult, had become oddly gentle. He still spoke with thunder in his voice and moved like a beast made of iron. But there was a softness in his eyes when he looked down at the little creature that had, against all logic, become his constant companion. What surprised the crew most wasn't how the general acted around Zik, but how Zik acted around the general. The puppy showed no fear, no hesitation, and certainly no respect for rank. It climbed up on Derek's throne as if it were a couch. It chewed on the toes of his battle boots. It dragged one of his ceremonial war capes through a puddle of coolant. And Derek never punished it. Instead, he laughed, a sound so unnatural at first that it unsettled the entire command deck, and waved his soldiers away when they offered to discipline the creature. "Let him be," he would say. "He is studying." In time, Zik began to wander deeper into the ship, and something unexpected happened. The crew changed. At first, they resisted, trying to ignore the furball that would sneak into their quarters or nip at their claws. But then it began to sit beside them during long shifts. It licked the hands of injured warriors in the med bay. It listened quietly as battle-hardened veterans spoke of their homeworlds and memories they thought long buried. One soldier, a scarred creature named Varnock, broke into tears after Zik rested his head on her lap during a quiet moment. She later claimed she hadn't wept since her hatchling days. Another officer, who had once vowed to destroy the first thing that made a sound in his bunk, was later seen building a miniature bed for Zik, complete with soft cloth and tiny pillows. What no one admitted aloud, but everyone felt deep inside, was that Zik had done something no leader, no machine, no weapon ever had. He made them feel again. Not rage, not hatred, but warmth. Derek, observing this slow shift from his high command chair, understood it more clearly than most. His species had long abandoned sentiment. They believed emotion to be weakness, softness to be death. But the humans had outsmarted them, not with strength, not with power, but with something far more dangerous, the idea that even monsters could change. And Zik, with his tail wagging and accidental chaos, was the perfect delivery system for that idea. Reports began to reach the general, reports from other ships, other fleets. Somehow, the image of Derek holding the puppy had leaked across the stars, and everywhere it traveled, it brought confusion, then laughter, and then quiet awe. Some enemy factions withdrew their fleets. Some neutral worlds began diplomatic contact, with the Carathian Empire for the first time in centuries, curious about the strange rumor of the warlord and the dog. Propaganda units tried to spin the story in various directions, but none of their versions held up. The raw, unedited image of General Derek with a puppy asleep in the crook of his arm was more powerful than any speech, any threat, any missile. It was real, and realness, in a galaxy full of deception, was the most valuable thing of all. Derek's rivals grew nervous. Political whispers spread. "Has the general gone soft?" they asked in hushed tones. "Is this the end of Carathian dominance?" But Derek saw the truth long before they did. He hadn't grown weak. He had grown unpredictable. And unpredictability, he knew, was the deadliest trait of all. No one knew what he would do next. No one could predict his new diplomacy, or his silence. No one dared test how far he would go to protect the little creature now asleep on his command console, and therein lay his power. The puppy had made him something no other general could be. Human. Not in form, but in presence. Relatable. Feared. Admired. Admired not because he conquered, but because he could have destroyed everything. And didn't. It was around this time that the humans sent a follow-up transmission, a simple message accompanied by a short video. It showed a litter of puppies playing in a park, their human caretakers laughing in the background. The message read, "There's more where that came from. We're open to conversation." Derek watched the clip 3 times in silence. The room around him waited breathlessly. Then he turned to his communications officer and said, without emotion, "Tell them. I am listening." The message was, "Sent." Across the ship, a quiet cheer erupted, quickly silenced, of course, but not before Derek smiled. Just a little. As Zick jumped into his lap and curled into a tight ball, the general leaned back in his chair. He stared at the stars beyond the viewing glass, no longer searching for new planets to break, but wondering what peace could actually feel like. A soft paw pressed against his armor. A content sigh rose from the tiny body curled against his chest. And for the first time in decades, General Derek closed his eyes, not to plan war, but to rest. The galaxy held its breath. A warlord had been sent a beast, and had received a puppy instead. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was the more dangerous of the two. Time passed, and the galaxy began to shift in ways no one expected. What began as a small, seemingly insignificant event, a warlord with a puppy, grew into a quiet revolution that no military force could match. General Darak, once known as the terror of the Karathian Empire, became a symbol of something far more powerful than fear. Zick, the tiny puppy who had been nothing more than a gift, became the most potent weapon in his arsenal, though none could have predicted its power. Derek had not planned for this. He had not expected a tiny, harmless creature to infiltrate his heart and, in turn, his empire. Yet, as Zick became more beloved aboard Vorik's Claw and beyond, the general realized something profound. Strength lay not in overwhelming others, but in understanding their hearts. As the fleet moved from system to system, Derek's reputation transformed from that of a ruthless conqueror to a leader who valued life. Fearful whispers of the warlords. Puppies spread like wildfire across every corner of the galaxy, from the dustiest space stations to the most advanced council chambers. Karathians, who had once considered emotion a weakness, began to talk about mercy, about peace, albeit in hushed tones. Some of them even dared to approach Derek with a hint of admiration in their eyes, something that had been entirely absent before. The commander of a rival fleet, a cold and calculating beast known for his cunning, sent a message, though it was laced with venomous pride. "I hear you've become soft, Derek, a warlord and a pet." Derek didn't respond at first. He let the words hang in the air like stale smoke, a challenge to his authority. But then, in an uncharacteristic move, he smiled. "Yes, I've become soft," he replied, his voice calm yet unmistakably firm. "And that's the problem, isn't it? You still think strength is about fear. You've missed the point entirely." His words were simple, but they held weight. The rival fleet. Commander, unwilling to risk humiliation, did not reply. Instead, the other Karathian factions began to whisper among themselves. A change had come, and it was one they could not ignore. The true turning point came when the first official peace envoy from the humans arrived. A single ship, carrying diplomats who had been carefully chosen to represent Earth, landed on Vorik's Claw. They were not warriors, nor was their language steeped in threats of destruction. Instead, they presented a simple offer: peace. They brought no weapons, no fleets, only their words, and their willingness to listen. At first, Derek had been skeptical. What could the humans, so small and fragile in comparison to the Karathians, possibly want from him? What power did they hold? But then, as he observed them, he realized something even more astounding than the quiet strength of Earth's people. They had come without fear. In a way, they were like Zik, unafraid of the pie. Unknown, trusting, and willing to embrace what might seem impossible. They spoke about cooperation, about a future where both Karathians and humans could live side by side, exchanging knowledge and resources, not at the point of a sword, but in mutual respect. Derek, whose heart had been hardened by countless years of conquest, began to see the merit in their proposal. No longer was he the leader of a war machine. He was a figurehead, a symbol, and now he had the power to choose something different, something better. As the diplomats departed, leaving behind only a single message, "We are here. When you are ready, we will talk." The general felt an unfamiliar sensation stir within him. Hope. It was a dangerous emotion, one that could undo everything he had built. Yet, for the first time in his life, Derek did not fear it. Zik, as always, was there beside him, nudging his hand with a gentle paw. He stroked the puppy's soft fur and thought back on the moment that had set everything in motion, when the crate had been opened, when the tiny creature had emerged to face him without hesitation, without fear. It had been the turning point. Derek had underestimated the humans. He had thought their gift was a mistake, a sign of weakness. But now, with the galaxy shifting beneath his feet and peace possibly within reach, he saw that it was, in fact, a challenge. A challenge to see the universe differently, to see strength in the soft places. Days turned into weeks, and the decision became inevitable. Derek sent a message to the human diplomats. "I accept your offer," he said simply. "We will talk." Across the stars, that message spread quickly, accompanied by an image. Derek, sitting on his throne with Zeke in his lap, a rare smile playing across his face. The image was more powerful than any weapon, more transformative than any battle. The Karathians had conquered many worlds. They had crushed countless civilizations beneath their boots. But in that moment, they were on the brink of something greater: peace. And it had all come about because of a tiny puppy, a creature who had no understanding of politics or war, but who had changed the fate of the galaxy simply by existing. The galaxy, once teetering on the edge of destruction, was now looking forward to something it had not known in centuries. A future where strength could coexist with compassion. A future where the unimaginable, an alien warlord and a puppy, could bring about quiet victory. And so, in the quietest of moments, the greatest victory was won. The general, once feared by all, had found his greatest strength in the simplest of creatures, in Zik, and the galaxy would never be the same.